Thanks for tuning back in to the Pike County Conservation District's Conservation Podcast. My name is Emily, and I'm the Communications Coordinator here and your host for the podcast. And today I'm talking with Nick Spinelli, who's the Executive Director of the Lake Wallenpaupack Watershed Management District. And he'll be chatting all about the projects that he's got going on in and around the lake and what we can all do to help keep the lake healthy. All right, we've got Nick Spinelli here, who's the Executive Director of the Lake Wallenpaupack Watershed Management District. Thanks for coming, Nick.
Thanks, Emily.
So can you talk a little bit about what LWWMD is?
Sure. The Lake Wallenpaupack Watershed Management District is a 501c3 nonprofit. We were founded in 1979 in response to declining water quality in Lake Wallenpaupack. There were a bunch of elected officials and business leaders who got together and decided that it would be better to have a single entity sort of lead the efforts to address water quality issues in Lake Wallenpaupack, and the best way to do that was to have a nonprofit organization. And so that's what we are today. We have sort of evolved into a community advocacy organization. We bring together local stakeholders and different special interest groups around the lake to address water quality issues.
Nice. So you do lots of stuff. And in your name, you have the word watershed, and we do a lot of stuff with watersheds here too. We've got a watershed specialist on staff. So for those who don't know, could you clarify a little bit what that word means?
Sure. A watershed is, in the simplest terms, a drainage basin. So based on topography and elevation, and every water body has a watershed, an area that drains into it. And so they can be less than an acre in size, or they can be measured in thousands of square miles. You know, you think about the Mississippi River has a drainage basin that's better measured in thousands of square miles. In our case, Lake Wallenpaupack has 219 square miles that drains into it. That covers parts of 4 different counties. And when you look at the land surface, what happens on that land surface directly impacts water quality in the lake. And so the things that are going on in that 219 square mile drainage basin are what helps to determine what that water quality is once it gets into the lake. So if there's urban areas or agricultural areas, forested areas, as the precipitation flows over the land surface, it's influenced by those land use activities. And so within that watershed, we are working to keep pollution from finding its way into our water bodies in the first place.
An awesome mission. Yeah, so we call that non-point source pollution, right? When there's stuff in the watershed that gets washed away with that stormwater into that body water that it's draining into. So we work hand in hand on a lot of projects dealing with watersheds and non-point source pollution.
Yes.
So you are the executive director for LWWMD. So what is your role like there?
I do a little bit of everything. So we have myself as a full-time employee, and then we also have Tina Bonzel, who is a operations specialist, and so she's a part-time employee. So for the majority of the watershed's existence, it's been sort of a single-person show. Various consultants and project partners over the years, but so for my role, I oversee our water quality monitoring program. I write and administer grants. I do educational programming. I do public relations programming. So a little bit of everything. Sort of have to be a jack of all trades, I suppose.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you get to do lots of different things each day, which is pretty cool. So you mentioned lots of the different projects already that you're involved in, but what are some of the big projects that you've got going on right now?
Our biggest project right now is a Growing Greener grant that we are using to bring the State Conservation Commission's dirt, gravel, and low volume road program to private community associations. So prior to working at the Watershed District, I worked right here at Pike County as a watershed specialist. And I did a bunch of training and work on the dirt and gravel road program. The low volume part wasn't incorporated back then. And so I've always been aware of that program. And one of the things that we run into quite a bit in the Lake Wallenpaupack watershed is private community associations with dirt and gravel roads or tar and chipped roads, low volume roads that are experiencing stormwater issues, or surface loss, surface material loss. So we realized that a lot of these projects are really, really costly. And so we decided to submit a Growing Greener grant to the state way back in 2019 to try and bring the training aspects and the technical expertise of the dirt and gravel road program to the private community associations. And so we were successful in that grant. We got $500,000 to implement the program. And so we had an educational workshop that about 67 or 68 people attended. And then if they attended the workshop, they were eligible to apply for grant funding for their associations to remediate some of their issues. And so we have 10 community associations in the program. Work is ongoing. We have a couple of those that are finished, a couple more that are currently being built as we speak, and then a few more that are scheduled to start in the next week or two. And so the majority of that funding is going to help correct drainage issues that are contributing sediment pollution to Lake Wallenpaupack. And so that's been the biggest project that we've had actually in the 14 years that I've been at the Watershed District. It is the biggest project that I've worked on. So
That's awesome. Yeah, and you've got a lot of people and a lot of associations involved with that. So that's a huge impact. And we do this dirt, gravel, and low volume roads here at the district, but we're only able to support funding for publicly owned roads. So things like roads owned by municipalities,
correct.
Game Commission, things like that. So you're bringing that education to some other groups outside of those. So that's awesome.
Right. And when we looked at, the funding program is there for doing projects for the townships for their dirt, gravel, and low volume roads, the Bureau of Forestry. And when we look at the gaps of miles of road that we have in the Greater Lake region, the privately owned roads are a really significant chunk of space.
Yeah.
We also know from a study that was done in the early 2000s as part of a different grant program where we were looking at a watershed management plan for Lake Wallenpaupack. We tried to determine what are our largest sources of nutrient pollution and where can we best spend our time and money and effort in trying to reduce nutrient pollution to Lake Wallenpaupack, and stormwater management and the dirt and gravel roads were one of the biggest sources. And so if we can help provide funding to those community associations so that we can correct major issues, and it's not like there's a lack of caring or effort. A lot of our community associations were built at a time when there were no stormwater management regulations in place. So you have narrow roads that are maybe situated where drainage goes directly down to the lake. So some steep slopes, not the greatest soils in the world. So we have a lot of problems in trying to correct some of these pollution sources. Big dollar projects and an association that has maybe just a couple dozen members. So it's very difficult to try and correct some of those sins of the past, if you want to call them that. So that's the whole purpose of this program, is that we wanted to bring funding in to try and help correct some of these issues, and then train people on how to take better care of their dirt, gravel, and low volume roads so that they minimize their impact on our water quality.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great project. And one of the other projects you had mentioned was the water quality samples and analysis that you do pretty regularly on the lake. So what are some of the things that you test for with that?
So our program looks at long-term chemistry. There's a lot of different ways to monitor water quality. If you have ever been to a public swimming beach, they have different parameters that they have to test for because you have that as a designated bathing area. So you might be looking at things like fecal coliform because it's a direct impact to human health. We don't look at that kind of stuff in our program. We're looking at things like nutrient contents of the water, so phosphorus and nitrogen, total suspended solids, pH. There's a short suite of both chemistry and physical water quality parameters that can help to let us know what's going on in the lake. The nutrients that are there feed into the growth of phytoplankton and zooplankton, which are the base of our aquatic food chain. And what a lot of folks are noticing now globally, as well as here in the Mid-Atlantic, is that we've got an increase in algae due to warming water temperatures, severe storm events, et cetera. So our program looks at the water chemistry, the physical components, pH, temperature, et cetera, and then also the long-term trends in plankton species.
Yeah, so when people think of algae, they typically think of like a green plant-like substance, right? But right now we're seeing some white algae on some of the rocks near the lake, right?
Yeah, that's a different type of algae. So one of the things that people often call about is there's white stuff on the rocks around the lake. And when you look at that in late summer, what that is filamentous algae. So it's algae that's growing on rocks or maybe if there's branches or something in the water, it attaches to it. It's the wispy sort of stuff that you see when the water level's high. And so that happens in the springtime and going into early summer when when the lake is full. And then as the water level drops throughout the summer, that algae is left on the rocks above water, and then it's bleached white by the sun. The chlorophyll goes out of it, and it looks like a white, fuzzy rock. So that's a natural thing. And in a natural water body, so a non-man-made lake, you wouldn't even notice that because your water levels typically don't fluctuate that much. But because the water level in Lake Wallenpaupack fluctuates so much, it's more pronounced when the water level drops throughout the summer.
That makes sense. Yeah, so keep an eye out for those fuzzy white rocks. They look pretty neat. So the district, you said, has been around since the 70s, and you've been working there for several years now yourself. So what have you noticed changing over time with the lake?
I think that one of the issues that everyone is dealing with right now, Lake Wallenpaupack specifically, but then also a lot of other lakes around us, is that we're dealing with more and more severe storm events that are causing impacts to our water quality. The number of, in the Mid-Atlantic region, the number of days with 3-inch rainstorms has increased, I want to say something like 65% since the 1950s. It's just really, we're seeing more and more severe weather events, and that is when you get 3 inches of rain in a day, or in some cases, like just a couple weeks ago, where we had close to 3 inches in a half an hour in some places. You have really significant stormwater runoff. Your stormwater ditches just can't handle that kind of volume, no matter how well they're built. And you get a lot of erosion and a lot of nutrients getting flushed into the lake. And I think that in combination with warmer temperatures that we're seeing in the summertime is what's causing us to see more of the algal bloom scenarios that we've experienced going back to about 2017 or 18. So it had been, we'd see one occasionally in the years prior to that, of course, in the 70s, it was that was the reason that the Watershed District was formed, is that there were some pretty regular algal blooms. But for quite a while, what we had been doing in reducing nutrient inputs to the lake was working pretty well. But the last 10 to 15 years in particular, we've seen such a dramatic increase in these storm events and really hot summers, and then limited ice cover. It's been, I think, 4 years, if my memory is correct, since we've had solid ice cover on Lake Wallenpaupack, and all that sort of contributes to changes in the growth patterns of algae, and then what we're seeing later into the summer, where we have sort of widespread algal growth in the lake, and that's happening not just here. That's happening in many, many places. The Mid-Atlantic is getting hit actually particularly hard compared to the rest of the country.
Yeah, so, in a changing world and with more development, there's always new challenges arising, but we also have lots of new technologies and ideas coming out as well. So what are some potential solutions to these challenges and new innovations that are coming around that you're most excited about?
Well, the fact that everyone is seeing these issues is, in some respects, it's good, because there are more and more of the most brilliant minds in limnology, the science of lakes, looking at what we can do to try to address some of these problems. And so there are a lot of new experimental treatments looking at what we can do to try and correct some nutrient inputs to our water bodies. There are a lot of folks who are paying attention to this. And so I think that bodes well for us. I also think it's a reason for us all to remember that we have to work on taking care of our water bodies ourselves. This is, you want to think about a lake, maybe you have your own private pond or a smaller lake association. Lake Wallenpaupack is obviously the sort of the biggest lake in this part of the state, but maybe you have a smaller one, and there is maintenance and care that has to go into taking care of these things. You can't just paint your house once and then forget about it for 50 years. There is a constant responsibility on our part as people who live here or spend time here and recreate here to do our best to try and take care of our water bodies. And so, even with some of these new developments in technology and treatment for algal growth and for nutrient reduction, it's up to a lot of us to try and sort of do the best that we can to reduce our impacts on water quality, which isn't always the easiest thing to do, or at least to get everybody to agree to do that. I think part of what would help out in our area is just everyone doing their best to maintain their septic system, or to learn how best to take care of their septic system. I think one of the challenges we have is that we've got a lot of intermittent usage of homes, weekend homes. We have a lot of people who maybe spent the entirety of their lives in a place where there was a public sewer system, and so they don't understand what goes into on-lot sewage disposal. So there's definitely a learning curve there of best practices, what to do and what not to do. So that's one thing. Stormwater management in our community associations and even from our own private properties can play a huge role in reducing nutrient loads to our streams and our tributaries that come into Lake Wallenpaupack. Responsible use of fertilizers and pesticides. A lot of those chemicals that are finding their way into our water, we're seeing things now with PFAS, and I'm sure that'll be another whole body of science and information and learning that continues. So everything that we do is impacting our water quality. And the more people we can get on board with taking a little extra time to maintain our lakes and our own private properties, all that benefits water quality.
Yeah, so you had spoke a little bit about septic systems and septic maintenance, and just a little background on that. When the septic systems aren't functioning properly, it can leach bacteria, but also nutrients like phosphorus and nitrogen out into the groundwater and surface waters, and those nutrients contribute a lot to algae growth and other stuff like that. So,
Correct.
And we have some resources on our website, and Penn State Extension and some of our other partners are also great resources for information if you're unsure how to best take care of your septic system. So, are there any common mistakes that you see that can be avoided by people visiting the lake? Anything that people can do to help out?
I don't know about common mistakes. Every once in a while we hear about somebody who dumps chemicals or fuel or old oil into a ditch on the side of the road that leads down to the lake. But that's that used to happen a lot more than it does now. I think the best thing that people can do for taking care of our water quality and of the lake is to limit your use of fertilizers on your own lawns, to try to minimize impervious cover. You don't necessarily need to cover every inch of your property with patios or paved driveways or whatever else increases stormwater runoff. So managing stormwater properly, trying to maintain vegetation, native vegetation, especially in some of our more natural areas. If you're a lakefront owner on any lake, trying to maintain a natural shoreline buffer is a great way to prevent nutrients from finding their way into the water. It really reduces nutrient loads from runoff that goes across the land surface. It can also be very aesthetically pleasing if you're into natural plants, and it can help keep geese away if you're not into having geese on your yard. A well-manicured lawn is a sort of like an all-you-can-eat buffet for a goose. So natural shorelines are a great way to deter geese from coming onto your property. So there's a lot of different things that you can do. As we talked about earlier, routine septic system care and maintenance. There are a lot of different resources. County conservation districts, DEP, our website, that all give you a sort of list of suggestions on things that you can do to help protect our natural resources.
Yeah, that's awesome. There's lots of stuff out there that people can look at to inform their decisions and how they can help the lake and the watershed as a whole. So we mentioned a few times that the Conservation District and LWWMD have a history of a strong partnership. We do lots of projects together. So what are some of the other partnerships that you have, and how have they contributed to your successes?
Well, one of the nice things about being a nonprofit organization, and it was I think one of the biggest reasons that the district was formed is that we're not confined by political boundaries, so we don't have to worry about crossing over from one taxable unit to another taxable unit. So we're able to work with all different partners. So the county conservation districts have been longtime partners. We work with Brookfield, the company who owns Lake Wallenpaupack. We've also done projects with the United States Fish and Wildlife Service. Just a couple of years ago, we did a stream restoration project in Newfoundland where we partnered with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. We'll also reach out to other agencies, so DEP or Fish and Boat Commission, to help sort of pool resources. We recently partnered with Pennsylvania Sea Grant. They got funding through Great Lakes Commission initiative to promote Clean Drain Dry, which is the effort to prevent the spread of aquatic invasive species. And so we did a ramp blitz event right before 4th of July weekend, where we were at the Mangan Cove public boat launch, handing out promotional materials and educational materials about how to prevent the spread of aquatic invasive species. So, we'll work with any different agency, the private community associations that we've recently partnered with to do the dirt and gravel roads. It's really, if there's somebody or some organization out there that wants to help us protect water quality, we're willing to work with them.
Yeah, that's great. So you've got lots of partners helping you out with all the many projects that you have. And so after years of working and living near Lake Wallenpaupack, do you have a favorite memory or a favorite thing about the lake?
That's a good question. I don't know. It's just sort of been like an omnipresent thing in my life. Neatest, I'll go with ecological, because I feel like that's the right thing to do for this job. Neatest ecological thing on Lake Wallenpaupack, probably 2016 or 17. I was scuba diving off of Schuman's Point, and there was a log hollowed out in the middle, but there was like a slice in the top of it, so you could see down into it. And I just happened to be swimming over top of it, and I looked down, and there were about a dozen rock bass, perfectly parallel to each other, all lined up and all looking up at me. And it was just a sort of a neat experience to see those species that are down there that most people never get to see. And so the natural resource management / science nerd part of me was sort of a neat connection, because this is what I do for a living, is to try and protect water quality and all of the things in Lake Wallenpaupack that depend on that water quality. And so it was like a neat experience to see those species in the water there, all lined up perfectly in a row, staring up at me, that nobody else saw that day. So I guess that's a cool experience that I kind of always carry around, where it's a nice reminder of why we do this work.
Yeah, that's very cool. Thanks for sharing that. That sounds like an awesome experience. So is there anything else that you want to share before we go? Any upcoming opportunities for the public to get involved with your work?
Sure. We have a cost share program that we have open every year, where we will assist landowners with funding to do any kind of project that will help to reduce nutrient loading to Lake Wallenpaupack. And so that's open just about July through October every year. We accept applications. So they can be shoreline stabilization, stream bank stabilization, stormwater runoff. We've done lots of agricultural runoff control projects. So we've got opportunities for people to reach out to us for assistance. If there's any kind of problem that you're having where you think that there's an overlap between protecting water quality and then also protecting your property, we're happy to help as far as we can. And as far as what folks can do to help protect water quality, it's up to all of us to go out of our way to take care of these natural resources. The northern Poconos and the Pike Wayne County area, I think everyone knows that we rely on tourism, and our natural resources are that big draw for tourism in this area. So we have to take care of these resources for so many reasons. I mean, the economic impact is sort of the most obvious, but it's also our home. We have to take care of this place where we live, and protecting our forests, our waters, all of those plant species and animal species that live within those places. That's all part of our obligation of being good stewards for Lake Wallenpaupack and for this whole area in general. So I'd say just we have to put a little bit of effort into this to take care of our natural resources. Otherwise, they won't be able to provide us the enjoyment that they have for so many decades.
Yeah, very well said. So I think that's it, but thank you so much for joining us.
No,
and
thanks for having me along.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for listening to the Conservation Podcast here at Pike County Conservation District. If you enjoyed this episode and want to find more, you can find past episodes and new episodes. Our Season 2 episodes will be released monthly starting January 2024 on our website, pikeconservation.org, under the Education tab, or on Spotify. To stay in touch with us and find out more about our upcoming events, newly released podcast episodes, and tips and tricks for conservation at home, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and sign up for our email monthly newsletter, which you can find the sign up link at the bottom of our website, pikeconservation.org. Thanks for listening.